when somebody tells you that they actually need to go and speak to their partner before they can join your program, they've told you, hey, sounds amazing, I'm 100% going to do it, I just need to speak to my partner, right? A lot of the time, 70%, 80% of the time, it's not a requirement, especially if that person is not in the business or not a decision maker whose money would be getting spent when this person does invest in whatever it is that you're selling to them. So yeah, basically you need to figure out whether or not it's actually true, whether or not they do need to speak to that person, which is rare, but can happen. And if they don't, then of course you need to close the deal. And if they do, then you need to get yourself in a position where you're going to be able to close the next call. You need to position yourself so despite the fact that they're coming off the call and the chance of them closing goes down dramatically, you still need to maximize your chances of getting it over the line. So if you're wondering who I am, my name's Oliver. I've closed hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals for a high-ticket info product agency, and I've also worked in sales for 5 years and just generally like to think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to sales, probably not. And yeah, in this video I'm going to be going through exactly how to get through to the actual route here. Is it permission based? Is it an FYI? And if they don't actually need permission, then how to get the deal over the line. So as you can see, I've written down here the most common thing that comes up. Yeah, sounds great. I just need to speak to my partner or my wife or my dog or whatever. When they say this, first thing you need to do is just ask them straight. Like, totally fine for you to do that. Like, just when you do go away and do that, like, what do you think you'll be speaking about, right? A lot of the time, they'll give you a hint of what their actual objection is here. They'll say like, oh, just need to kind of talk about the money, or I need to, let them know about what they're going to be doing, or figure out who's going to be doing what, that kind of thing. Just listen, just be like, yeah, totally with you. Next step is you need to confirm like their stance, like whoever it is that they're going to be speaking to, like what their stance is. It sounds something like, okay, so when you do go away and speak to your team or your partner or whatever, like, are they actually aware that this is a problem right now and, would support you in kind of solving it? And they'll be like, yeah, obviously, yeah, they do know it's a problem, and, they are keen to solve this. If it's their team, they might say like, oh yeah, they don't have much work at the moment, and that, they're asking me for more work. If it's their partner, they might say, yeah, like we're 50-50. Like if I'm not making money, he's not making money, something like that. So you just want them to confirm the stance of the person that they're going to be speaking to. You might even want them to get them to like double down on that. So if they say, oh yeah, I'm just going to be speaking to like my team or my partner or whatever, and you said, okay, like, do they know this is a problem? Would they want to do this? And they say, yeah, you want to find out, okay, why would they want to do this? How would that impact them? Because you're kind of getting them to getting them to sell to themselves, like through their partner, and also kind of selling their partner as well, like through them. It's kind of weird. So that, oh yeah, if they say like, oh yeah, no, of course, well, we're 50-50 partners, they're not making much money right now, blah, 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 blah. There's loads of different things they can say here, but you basically just want to get them to kind of double down on why their partner would agree to this, and why they think it's a good idea, and why it's a problem, like whatever it is that you are solving. Now you want to kind of go through like the worst case scenario. So once we've kind of asked them straight about, what they think they'll be discussing, and get them to kind of confirm the stance of the person they'll be discussing with, and get them to also double down on that. Now we want to kind of throw out this worst case scenario. So like, I can tell you want to do this, Mr. Client, but what about if you go to your partner and tell them about this, amazing opportunity or whatever, and they say, no, like, I don't want to do this. Now, this is usually a really good way of getting a read on kind of if they actually do need to speak to that person, because sometimes people just say, I'll just do it anyway, right? And it's like, okay, cool. And then you just know, you kind of have a clear idea then, okay, well, they don't need to speak to their partner. This is just like an FYI kind of conversation. Or they might say, well, I don't know, like, good question. Or maybe they say, I wouldn't do it. This is just getting a read on the situation. That's all this is for. Now we need to establish whether this is permission-based or FYI with an actual question. So we've asked them straight what they're going to be talking to them about. We've got them to confirm the stance of the person they're going to be speaking to. We've got them to double down on that stance. We've explored this worst-case scenario. We've got a soft read now of whether or not they do or don't need to speak to their partner for real, or team or wife or whatever. Now we ask them, okay, so when you go, when you speak to them, would you say this is more of a permission-based conversation, or would you say this is more of an FYI-based conversation? I hate that I've got these the wrong way around. Let me just swap them around. Oh wait, shit, no, this part's not swapped around either. All right, ignore that. Cool. So basically, if it's FYI, we can go in for the close. And if it's permission based, then we have to go a bit of a different route, because we're not going to close the deal on this call probably, but we can position ourselves to be in a beneficial spot for that next call, for when we speak to their partner, or once they've spoken to their partner, or whatever. Now, if they say it's FYI, if they're like, oh yeah, I just want to kind of let them know, then we can go in for the close. And it's a really simple close, and it's actually a really hard one to wriggle out of, unless someone's really does have another like solid objection, in which case, like, fair enough, maybe you've got to go to that. But you can come back round to this once you've handled that objection if they give it to you. So, for example, if they say it's FYI, you can say, okay, awesome. Well, how about this then? How about we get you started, we get you on board, whatever. And if you go and speak to your team or your wife or whoever, and they're like, what the fuck have you done? Like, this is a terrible idea. Like, they're super angry. Like, it definitely wasn't the right move. We'll just refund you. Just drop me a message. We'll refund you. No hard feelings, basically. So you're just taking the pressure off. You're giving them the permission to start with that risk reversal of knowing that if their team flips out, or if their wife flips out, or if whatever happens, they could just drop you a message. Because usually, if they start, they're not going to drop you a message, and their team's not going to flip out. Their wife's not going to flip out. It's just going to be like a simple case of, oh yeah, cool, makes sense. And then they get started. That is a really solid close to go to. If they say, still got to think about the money or something like that, you might handle the money objection now, and like go down the whole money objection route and handle it and agree on something that works for them, and then come back round to it and say, all right, awesome, well, why don't we get you started? And like I said, worst case, if XYZ happens with your partner or wife or whatever, then we'll just refund you. And usually they'll just close there. If they say it's permission based, then we need to figure out, are they involved in this side of the business, right? So it's like, if their partner is like, I don't know, got nothing to do with it, they just do accounting or whatever, and like this is, you're talking to someone about marketing, it's like, so they're not involved, like, how are they going to understand this? Like, how are they in a position to make a logical choice on this? How do they know, right? So you don't necessarily say that, right? Because you don't want to like rock the boat too much. You just want to introduce this idea. It's like, okay, are they involved in this side of the business? And there's two main things we want to figure out here, right? What their partner's going to think about the price, and something else. So let's just focus on the price. So basically, you just want to ask them straight, okay, and when you speak to your partner, like, what do you think they'll think about the investment? And you'll get a good read here. They might be like, they really don't like spending money. Or they might be like, it sounds all right, actually. And a lot of times people will lean on the fact that their like partner doesn't want to spend the money or whatever when it's them and they've got fear. But that's a totally different topic. Anyway, you just want to figure out, how will their partner feel about the price? I literally had it today, and they were like, yeah, like, the guy said they're a bit more numbers focused than I am, but I'm probably, like, they probably will be quite happy with it. And it's like, cool, awesome. Next question. This is a really important question now, right? So, because you're setting a trap, basically. You need to ask them, is there an amount of money that you are able to spend without getting permission? And then you give them like a for example. So like, if it's like an online business, you might say like, could you buy like a monitor or like a desk or something like that? Something just kind of fairly innocent for like, $200, $300, $400, $500. And they might be like, yeah, there is an amount of money that I can spend without asking for permission. It's like, okay, awesome. Like, typically how much is that? And they'd be like, oh, like I could buy it. You might have given them the suggestion, the desk, whatever. And they'll say like, yeah, I could spend a few $100s or something like that. Awesome. Now we've got confirmation on this. They're going to find it very hard to like wriggle out of the next part of this conversation where you want to take this. This is, the trap has been laid now. We've figured that out. Hopefully they've said a few $100s or whatever. As long as you've positioned this correctly, you should have got to the point where they've said that. Now you can go for a deposit. So it's like, awesome. Well, if you really want to do this and you're definitely sure about getting started and you're 100% sure it's the right thing for you, then what we will do in this position, like in this situation, is we would take a small refundable deposit of $200, and that will give you the next 2, 3 days, 4 days, whatever, 48 hours to speak to your partner and go through all of this. And the reason we take the deposit is for two reasons, and this is really important you say this. Number one reason is so you're making a meaningful commitment towards your goal of hitting, XYZ goal per month, revenue, whatever it may be. And two, so I can send you exclusive something, product, part of the program, case studies, a swipe file of like ads, I don't know, whatever it is you offer, like basically something of value that you could charge for. Like you say, I will give you that for free, so you and your partner can make an even more informed decision on this. So it's like an exchange. You're not just saying give me a deposit, you're making an exchange with them. You're saying give me the deposit and I will give you something in return. And then there's two options. Worst case scenario, on the next call, they don't want to start, you refund them the deposit, no hard feelings, and they get to keep the free thing you gave them. And the best case scenario is you get started, you got a head start on, you could check that thing out that I sent to you, and I'll just knock the deposit off your first payment of whatever it is. So they pay $200 deposit, and it's usually $2,000 up front. They just charge them $1,800 on day one. Either way, there's no risk to you, Mr. Prospect. How does that sound? Now, either they'll just say yes here. I put close here, but by I mean close, I just mean close them on the deposit. So important to get cash collected here, because if you don't get that money, then it's going to be tricky. Like, we've all booked a follow-up call, and then people haven't shown up despite promising you the world. And if they give you a deposit, they might not show up to the call, but they usually will message you, as long as it's something like at least $100, $200, something like that. So they might be like, all right, yeah, sounds good. Or they might be like, oh, what's the deposit for? And you're like, look, you reiterate, it's meaningful commitment, and I can actually send you something. Like, that's the most important thing. If they're not sure here, if they're like, nah, I still don't want to do that, you got to challenge them. You got to be like, hey, like before, you told me you could spend $200-$300 without asking for permission from your partner on like a desk or a monitor. But now when we're talking about making a meaningful step towards hitting your goal, like, you're not actually, you're not willing to do it. Like, I don't get that. Like, what's the situation? They might give you an objection, they might give you a reason, whatever, or they might close. If they don't want to do it still, you've just got to take the red pill. 99% of the time, this person is not going to become a client, and that's completely fine. But like, we've tried everything here. We've done our job properly. We've gone through this entire process, and yeah, like, if they're like, nah, I still don't want to do it, then most of the time they won't turn into a client. Sometimes they will, but almost always. And it's better for you to take the red pill now and just like accept the truth and be like, yeah, fine, no worries. Like, don't book a follow-up call. Don't block out a time in your calendar. Like, still send them an email and, whatever information you want to, but just essentially assume that they are like done. They're never going to close, and just forget about them. And then 1 in 100 will still convert and the rest won't. And at least you've avoided the pain, like, of delaying the pain with this hope that they're going to convert, and then to face it, just face it now and be like, no worries, hang up the call, be like, fuck, they didn't convert, and move on to the next one. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in a bit.